I have had a couple of days to digest the news about the British Airways Executive Club being revamped or gutted or destroyed or whatever word you wish to use. For me, it has been an interesting couple of days. I've been able to sort of have a look into some of the details of what's changing, what isn't changing, and so on. And my previous video was very well received. Thanks for the likes and subscriptions. Please do like and subscribe. That video had 15 reasons why it was bad, and that was fair enough. However, having this time to sort of digest what was happening and maybe have a bit of a reframe, I thought I would try to do something a little bit different and do a video from the alternative perspective. Now, this is probably a good chance for me to maybe work through some of my frustrations, the idea of some of my cognitive distortions, like focusing completely on the negatives. So let's take a step back, try to be as neutral and as fair as possible, and talk about some of the positive aspects of the changes. Now, I've managed to rustle up 10. I think 10. I'm not playing purely devil's advocate here. I'm trying to be a bit more reflective on my experience and the kind of reaction, the gut reaction I think we all felt versus, thinking with our hearts versus with our heads. I know I said gut there, so I'm mixing up metaphors. Anyway, the problem I had, the biggest problem really was the shift in the goalposts mid year. As an indication, I had planned out my tier point year for 2025. So I'd already bagged a couple of the double tier points holidays. One was premium economy to Middle East, so that would have been 360 points with a double tier points offer. And the other one was to the States, which was premium economy there and first class back. So between those two flights or holidays, I should say, I would have bagged 960 points. And then the rest of the summer, maybe autumn, Christmas, or whatever, I was going to do maybe three more holidays, a couple of those European ones, those sort of mid-distance ones, Morocco or Greece or so on, or even a premium economy holiday to the States, and I would have got over the line to gold, no problem, 1,500 points. Under the new system, however, that's not going to happen. It's a bit annoying because with the conversion rate, which I think people correct me, is 13.5 times what the old money was. It's going to be a lot of money in terms of I'm between me and my other half. I would need to, rather than just spending about £5,000 on three different breaks, it's looking at we're going to have to spend 18 grand to try to combine. That is to try to get over the line, and that is just unfeasible, unfortunately. So the real annoying thing was that the move the goalpost halfway through, so that's a bit of a pain. Hopefully, I might be able to get a flight or two through work or some other means, but I'm probably going to lose out on goal. But hey ho, we'll see how things progress. Anyway, so again, let's reframe things so we have a slightly more positive and balanced perspective on the changes. I don't think BA handled it particularly well, both in terms of the timing, in terms of the narrative, the way they sort of puffed it up, the way they've reframed it. I've heard some people sort of say quite derogatory. Yeah, I mean, gaslighting might be a bit strong because I think, but in terms of the general corporate spiel and hey, we're doing this for your benefit, it probably wasn't the best, and I don't think people will be overly happy. Anyway, enough of those negatives. Let's try and think of some positives. What is the positive aspects of British Airways shifting to a revenue based system? Right, let's start with number one. It's considerably fairer. Okay, let's park all the hoo ha about how this news was delivered and just how fair it is in terms of the transition period and all that stuff. I'm talking about the fairness as the model itself, the concept. If I was going to start a loyalty program, if you're going to start a loyalty program, surely you'd base it on revenue, which is you spend this much money with my business and I will reward your loyalty. Makes perfect sense. And as a customer, I would quite like that. So hang on, I've spent more money, then I should be able to enjoy the perks. So yeah, I really think the revenue based system is conceptually the fairest system. You spend more, you get more. Number two is closing some seriously flawed loopholes. there has been a fantastic community, and hats off to people who've been so creative, so innovative in terms of finding the different routes, the different strategies to move up the ranks, and it has been brilliant, and I've actually benefited from that too. However, if I'm being fair, I would say that some of those are seriously flawed. Some of those were BA's own making. The double tier points program was very generous and very helpful, certainly getting people back post COVID. But it perhaps went a bit too far. And, well, in fact, actually, I think that the whole club revamp could be a result of that. But the point is that there was some ways you could easily exploit the system, and it wasn't always fair to other people. So I think the ability, I've never done a tier point run, for example, but is it really fair? You think if I had a system where I could fly from Glasgow to London, London to Helsinki, Helsinki back to Belfast, Belfast to what's the one everyone goes to? Oh, Sofia, Bulgaria to Timbuktu or whatever, and then back again. You can get gold in 20 quid and overnight or whatever it is. But the point is that that's all brilliant maths, brilliant creativity, but is it really the right way to do it? The way I reframed this was thinking, okay, so if I was, like I say, a supermarket, if the supermarket launched a loyalty program and there was a deep flaw in it, which is it bases your rewards on how many times you shop in there, not your spend. Well, if I got 100 points every time I shopped in there, you think, well, I can go in there, buy some Monster Munch or whatever roast beef flavor, go out, go back in, buy another roast beef Monster Munch or pickled onion. I'll make my decision nearer the time, and then you're going to get more and more points that way. Than actually, hang on, I just spent 200 quid. Can I have that sort of points, please? So yeah, so it's some flaws, and believe me, I have benefited from these flaws. I've loved these sort of tweaks and little systems where you can just boom. And I'm doing a video on Athens, and we flew Club Europe. Perfect example, which was that sweet spot where you get 80 points for a business class flight to those sort of peripheral European and minor Asian destinations, was amazing and such a good hack, especially with the double tier points. But I'm going to be honest then and say, right, take a step back, remove my own goggles, and say, if that was my company, I realised there was a flaw in the system that people were exploiting, I'd probably want to close that down as well. So yeah, we'll give them that. Number three builds on that, and that is the incredibly generous offers BA have been running these last few years. Okay, I know there was the whole COVID thing, and that was pretty bad stuff. But since then, and it's easy to forget, and I forgot this until I started reading some of the comments. Oh, yeah, they actually did drop the tier point thresholds post COVID, which allowed me to get to gold, which I would never have done ordinarily. Oh yeah, they've been running these double tier points offer, which allow me to get to gold, which I would never have done ordinarily. So these have been very generous, perhaps overly generous, and we can obviously say this is a hell of a course correction to make it considerably more stingy. But I do think that, in fairness, I have gained that system and I have benefited from that system and that generous offering. And I've been able to get to gold the last 3 years. I might be able to eke it out obviously another year or maybe two if I'm lucky. But I should be thankful, I think, a bit grateful that I was able to enjoy this stuff, even though I had no legitimate reason other than the exploitation of the double tier points. And also, I'm going to say that remembering lots of that experience from COVID, and believe me, I'm sure other people have terrible experiences. I was very fortunate that all my experiences with BA were smooth, were fine. They refunded all the money. They made sure that everything was very flexible. And yeah, of course, they had to do that to a certain extent. But if they really wanted to absolutely screw everybody over, they would have just kept the tier point system running and say, sorry, everyone, you're all down to zero. But that maybe would have obviously been a bit extreme. And I have to say as well, in terms of the wider relationship I have with BA, if that's the right term, they have always been very proactive with me when things have gone wrong. I've always got refunds when our flight to South Africa, excuse me, was cancelled or delayed by a day. They put us up in the hotel. Obviously, they're legally bound to do that, but obviously, I got the compensation too, which was nice. When we've had cancellations, they've just refunded all the money, no problem. And when things happen, like we were meant to go to Tel Aviv last October, when obviously those things, the attacks happened, and it was all shut down. But no, it's never been a problem. And I have to be thankful and somewhat grateful that for me at least, I have had some very positive experiences with BA customer service. Now I know people are going to probably absolutely slaughter this and say, "Oh," and I see that on the social media feeds when people are like, "Hey, BA announced a new sale. Where's my money from my cancelled flight 2 years ago?" So I honestly appreciate this is not for everyone. I'm just talking about my personal situation, which is actually, I'm going to say positive, and I have to factor that in when I look at the wider picture, which is this executive club change in isolation. Yeah, it's pretty bad, but with the generosity of the deals and the other systems, I have been very lucky to receive what I received. Okay, so number four builds on that as well, which is I am trying to be much more reflective on what things were like before COVID. These perks and these double tier points and so on have been great, but I think for me, it's made me somewhat complacent, maybe even a little bit arrogant perhaps, because I forgot how much of a slog it was for me to move my way up the ranks. So I was in uh, blue for friggin' ever, and then managed to nudge up to bronze with a bit of strategic flying. And it wasn't until I upped the spend to move into the premium economy cabins that I finally managed to get to silver. And that was okay in terms of, I think I've mentioned on my previous videos as well, the strategy I developed, which is three premium economy flights, return flights, and one European business class flight. So that was great. That was just at my spend level, and that was a very effective way for me to get there. However, I have to appreciate that that was not easy, and these last few years has been so easy to first of all get to silver and to gold. So it's been a little bit of complacency on my part and not really remembering that it's not supposed to be this easy to get elite status, certainly when it comes to air travel. Number five is Congestion. These incredibly generous offers have obviously been very popular, including with me getting up to goal when I shouldn't have. However, what that's resulted in is a lot of people being able to get access to some of the perks and the amenities. As an example, the first time I ever went through the first wing at Heathrow was 2018 with a friend who was gold who got there through work. It was very, very quiet in there, very relaxed, very nice. And hey, I'm part of this, so I'm not throwing shade at anybody. The last few times we've been in there, it's been heaving. When we left COVID and had they reopened the lounges, we were still silver then. Those were heaving. And in fact, the last time we tried to get through Heathrow, there was a queue to get into the first wing, which is really not what you want. And in fact, actually, there was even a queue to get into the business class lounges, the galleries lounges. So we've all enjoyed those perks, but let's be fair, it was always meant to be an elite status. So it's a question of just rebalancing those things and making sure that there's enough kind of balance between the average traveller versus someone that's travelling frequently. Although, interesting thing want to see is whether if they made it so hard to get a goal with 20,000 points, I don't know whether that's going to lead to a load of people not making gold, and then suddenly the business class lounge is going to be even more busy. But we shall wait and see. But yeah, easing congestion, a good thing, surely. Number six is gold just ain't worth it. That is maybe a controversial one. I might get shouted at. But for me, I think experience in silver for a few years and then experience gold. Yeah, the first wing is very nice to walk through the private dedicated security. Not the Heathrow, not the same in Gatwick. I like the first class lounge. The lounges aren't that different, really. They are pretty similar. The ability to book in when you reserve your seats and all that stuff is a silver. So I generally don't think that for the cost from 7,500 points to 20,000, I don't think it is worth it. So after that experience, I have enjoyed it and I'm going to enjoy the rest of it. But I'm going to go back and say, okay, logically, clear your head, think strategically, and is it worth spending £25,000, which is what it would be as a household account, to use the first class wing and maybe the arrivals lounge? Probably not. Probably not. I think if I worked out the maths, it might be cheaper just to use the a bog standard airport lounge. And don't forget that facility is only in Heathrow, and I think there's one in New York as well. So it's not like you're going to get an additional level of quality in many other airports. You will get some, but it's not always the case. So I'll probably do a bit more of a video breaking down gold, because that was my original concept. Was is gold worth it? Spoiler, no. So there you go. So for me as well, I can just process that and think you got to gold through fluke, through exploiting the system, but it's not really worth it. It's certainly not worth that additional spend. So I can be a little bit more comfortable thinking, right, maybe I can just aim for silver, which is what I always wanted in the first place. Number 7 is holidays. Now, I've had to turn the light on because it was getting a bit dark here. So, the ability to earn additional tier points on your holiday is a really, really good one. The fact that it looks like now, this is a bit controversial. It doesn't, at the moment, if you look at the BA system, it tells you that if you book a flight, you obviously less taxes and air duty and all that sort of stuff. So, you do not get your whole spend on a flight. Under the example they give, you get the entire price of the holiday. So this will give you a nice, what I think people worked out must be like, I don't know, 15, 20% reduction in actual tier points for a flight. Use a holiday, book a holiday then. So you're going to get not only the value, you're going to get that 20% boost as well, in theory. Let's see if they change that. And this is something I've always felt quite strongly about, was the old system. Again, maybe one of the flaws was that it wasn't based on logical spend or anything like that. So you could buy a very cheap, a cheap business class return to Europe somewhere for, I don't know, a couple of £100, and that would net you 160 points. I would spend £5,000 and possibly even fly an economy to a holiday somewhere, and I would get 80 points. So it was totally the wrong way around. So I think the shift to incentivize holidays, and if they do keep that ability where you get all those tier points rather than losing any, is awesome. Number 8 is a family boost. That's right. If you travel with a family or have to work around school holidays, the biggest annoyance has been that it's much more expensive to fly during those periods. Now you are well, not incentivized, but now you get a slight perk for that. So if you do have those markups, which are really frustrating, I actually don't look at holidays outside of term times because I might get triggered. It's a real annoyance. However, if you know that, I've got to spend an extra £500 or whatever, and that goes into your tier bonus points, that's great. Or that's great. That's better than the old system. So I'm going to say families, especially. I mean, I'm sure some of you will tell me that if you have a few kids or whatever, it's going to be ridiculously expensive to head off. So I've heard some people, maybe they're not quite down with reality, or are in pretty good jobs, but they're telling me they're spending 10 grand on a holiday. So if your family is spending 10 grand on it and it's two adults, which again split between the adults, you're going to easily get two bronze memberships. You're not actually that far off if you had another break from getting joint silver. So that's a real bonus for anyone with a family. However, I suppose that could potentially mean if they do get to silver, you might have lots of children running around the lounges, because you'd have two adults, both with silver membership, who can both bring in a guest. Number 9 is the scope for promotions. This is something I think I have been guilty of, and maybe some other people have found this experience as well, which is I've just honed straight in on the changes and just assumed that was it. Assume, boom, that's it. And I was, in my previous video, I did mention that I was a bit frustrated about the lack of creativity within the redesign of the system. However, there is so much scope for promotions by extending it to holidays or perks or something like that. And maybe this is BA's masterstroke, or indeed a way around the negative feedback. But if you're going to start throwing in incentives, like, hey, we'll give you an extra 500 tier points for upgrading your cabin on top of the value of the ticket or whatever it is, or we will do that boost of a holiday. If you book a holiday before this time or whatever, we will give you a 25% markup, or all those kind of flexible, creative ideas to be able to boost your way up. I think they'll probably have to do some of those sort of things because it's a little bit difficult at the moment to seeing the pure statistics. So I'm thinking a bit like those we are Sainsbury's, for example, the Nectar Points thing, which is they reward you for your overall spend, but you get an extra 80 bonus points for buying this tiramisu or whatever it is, some hummus. Whereas I kind of think it could work as well, which is following the algorithm. They could say, hey, your next holiday, if you book a minimum of 5 nights in the States or whatever it is, we will give you an extra 1,000 points. So all those things are pretty good. And as a case in point will be, not sure I'm going to do this, but working out our spend, we were a little bit short of the 15,000 points, household points we'd need to both get silver membership. However, the fact that you can now earn or will earn on Amex BA card makes me think, well, actually, if I put that spend onto the Amex card, less £300 for the annual fee, I might just be able to get there without an additional spend. Also, there's the bonus Avios points you get through spending, but I'll have a look at that. Anyway, the point is that BA, whilst we all agree, and they were not going to admit this, but I think they kind of fumbled this announcement and it's not gone particularly well. There is a chance to at least redeem or gain some face. So it could be a raft of fantastic or interesting promotions. They can make it bespoke to people. They can really, really just be creative and fun. And actually, that starts to a bit like when you get your weekly. I mean, obviously, you don't travel weekly. When you get your weekly nectar points, oh, good. I needed some dry roasted peanuts. They're giving me 80 points for it. If you think, oh, I was about to book a holiday, and now they're going to give me double my tier points, then whatever. But it's a good opportunity, and hopefully I know how to. I'm hoping and positive in saying that this isn't all disaster, and there's going to be shortcuts, there's going to be hacks, there's going to be little things that they're going to offer us that are not going to make us have to spend £7,500 or £20,000, although I wouldn't be able to spend that anyway. And number 10 is, why don't you treat yourself to a nice upgrade? I think this is an interesting one for me because I'm still very much of the mentality of the budget airline flyer, very much that finding the cheapest deal, which is good and it's important to do that if you're on a budget. But if you do have a little bit of extra disposable income, you think, you know what? Rather than sort of thinking like I've always, I can find the cheapest hotel, and actually that hotel's pretty rank or it's in the middle of nowhere, just to be able to get those extra points because I don't want to spend any more and not get the same amount of tier points under the old system. Under the new system, hey, I do get incentivized. I do get a little boost for spending a bit more money. So, whilst you have to accept that it's gone, it's over, the old system is going to be out the door from the 1st of April, we have to look at the positive. So I am saying that maybe I will push up to a nicer hotel. Maybe I'll upgrade the room. Maybe I will upgrade to business class for the sake of it. So even though if you find a good deal to get to business class and it's only £100, so it's annoying. You're not going to get those in bonus points or tier points bonus tier points, excuse me, as you would before. But heck, you get a business class flight for £100. That's a bargain. So let's focus on those kind of aspects. And also for me as well, the one of my highlights is always the all-inclusive hotels. That seemed to be a fantastic way to boost points. So if you're looking, say, the Caribbean, Mauritius, and you're flying, certainly if it's economy, premium economy, you are going to earn more than you would having flown business in terms of tier points. So definitely look at treating yourself, and I think I might do that as well. And rather than say like scrimping just for the sake of it, it's going to be okay. I'm not going to go crazy. I realise I'm not going to attain gold, so there's no way combined household I'm going to could or would spend £40,000 on through BA. But what I will do is okay, the 1,500 points, 15,000 points for the joint silver membership isn't that far off our existing annual spend. So all it may take is a little bit of tweaking, a room upgrade here and there, a slightly nicer hotel, and hopefully we should be able to make it and improve our holiday experience. Not that I obviously don't go to some rat infested hostel or anything like that, but yeah, treat yourself. Don't feel so bad. You know, if you've got the money and it's a nice holiday and you deserve it. Okay, so those are my 10 attempts to take an alternative viewpoint at the British Airways revamp. I am not sure I will have convinced anyone. I'm not even sure I've completely convinced myself, but I think actually just talking through this helps us process the shock and the initial reaction of frustration and anger and disappointment that I know many of you have felt. So thank you for listening to this, listening to me ramble on. Obviously, you have the old video which is focusing on the negatives. I'm now trying to, it's almost like grief, isn't it? Trying to work through the different stages. And this was my attempt to hopefully cheer a few people up and try and make us think on the positives. But obviously, if you didn't think this is particularly worthwhile and I just sound like a complete idiot, then that's fair enough. But okay, thank you so much again, and hopefully see you on the next video soon, which I think we've got the British Airways Club Europe experience. It's next week, maybe, so I'll see how that one goes. But thanks very much. Until next time.